And at 10, Donald Harvey. Harvey belonged to a group of psychos known as the Angels of Mercy, who claimed to kill for the benefit of their victim. Harvey was convicted of 37 of his more than 57 suspected murders, and he had also confessed to as many as 87. When Harvey was hired at Cincinnati VA Medical Hospital, he managed to collect over 30 pounds of cyanide, which he kept in his home. He also kept diaries and detailed notes on each of his victims, including how he killed them. This gives me intense William Afton vibes, okay? Not for some certain reasons, but for the delusion of him thinking that he was doing it for the victim's benefit, but still doing it in horrifying ways. It's the exact same kind of delusion that I could see William having, and a similar delusion to what he seems to have in the games. In the books, I don't think he's like this exactly, but his game version certainly seems the type, especially given his appearance in the Foxy Go 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 minigame where he's smiling. And at 9, Raincoat Killer. Hailing from the Deadly Premonition universe, this video game villain is the launching point for the game's story. The murder of Anna Graham sparked renewed interest in the legend of the Raincoat Killer. After the arrival of FBI agent Francis York Morgan, Harry began to keep a close eye on the case, intervening at seemingly random moments. He uses his aide, Michael Tolleson, to convey messages to York, telling him to take it slow and to keep his mind open to all possibilities. As York tried to solve the case, the new killer showed up many times. As more evidence surfaced, it became clear that George Woodman was the new Raincoat Killer. He had sacrificed the woman of Greenvale in order to become immortal. Unfortunately for him, York was able to defeat him, ending the terror of the Raincoat Killer. Much like how, in the novels at least, William is searching for immortality thanks to the discovery of Remnant, and then is defeated by the Springtrap suit and Henry's multiple fires. Okay, well, he would have been defeated if he wasn't possessed by his son, but I mean, like, there's still a parallel there. Right? And at 8, Nathan Dunlap. In December of 1993, after Chuck E. Cheese had closed in Aurora, Colorado, Margaret Kohlberg, who was the manager of this Chuck E. Cheese, was tallying receipts in the back room. While she was doing that, Bobby Stevens was scrubbing down the kitchen, and Ben Grant, Colleen O'Connor, and Sylvia Crawwell were all working in the main party area. However, there was someone hiding in the bathroom, 19-year-old Nathan Dunlap, who earlier that year had begun working as a cook, but was fired after an argument over his hours. But this time he was looking for revenge. He exited the bathroom and began firing, killing everyone in the building. First Sylvia, then Ben, then Colleen. Then he went into the kitchen, where he shot Bobby, although Bobby ended up surviving and was actually a key witness in his case. Then Nathan went to the back room, where Margaret opened the safe before being shot twice. Nathan filled her bag with $1,500 cash, arcade tokens, and keychains, but thanks to the security cameras, he was promptly arrested and sentenced to death. Thanks to MatPat and his first game theory on FNAF, this one is fairly well known, hence why it's closer to the top, but if I didn't include it, I feel like everyone in the comments would have asked me why, so there you go. And at 7, Fazbear Entertainment. I think arguably the biggest villain in the entirety of FNAF isn't even William, but rather Fazbear Entertainment. If we want to go like cause and effect, yes, William created Fazbear Entertainment, however this company has gone on to do plenty of messed up things without him. Fazbear's Fright, reopening however many times they have, even though people are constantly killed at their locations. I'm sure plenty of other corporate crime as well, like espionage and fraud. Oh, and the entirety of FNAF AR, since they're intentionally sending out animatronics that they know are messed up to families all over the world. One of the higher ups of the company is still working for Afton, as we learn from Security Breach's lore baskets, since someone very influential at the company recommended Vanessa for security guard, despite her having no prior experience. And I mean, come on, someone had to pull the strings to build on where the FNAF 6 pizzeria was. So, in my eyes, the biggest villain is Fazbear Entertainment in general. However, this isn't a biggest villains list, it's the scariest villains list, so they're only number 7. And at 6, Thomas Lee Dillon. Thomas Lee Dillon was a serial sniper found guilty of killing 5 people. Directed by the voices in his head, Dillon killed people randomly. According to attending psychiatrists, Dillon's delusions of grandeur spilled over into the reality of his life and the lives of his victims. His victims were killed by a high-powered rifle while they participated in outdoor activities, sometimes hundreds of miles from Dillon's home. Authorities did not link them to Dillon until he had sent a letter to the local paper. After the FBI put together a criminal profile of the killer, a friend of Dillon's brought him to the attention of the authorities, which in my mind at least is nearly identical to the story of William Afton. The amount of the first victims, the authorities only investigating the murders after they got tipped off by a friend of the killer, in Afton's case that being Henry, and eventually you'll see that there are quite a few similarities to multiple real people, and it's scary. At least when people compare me to Afton, it's because I wear purple. Halfway through, into number 5, Elliot Ludwig. Elliot Ludwig is a recurring character in Poppy Playtime. He is most known for his position as both the founder and overseer of Playtime Co. Elliot Ludwig is an old man with light skin, blackish hair, and an unknown eye color, probably brown, given that I think it's the most common eye color. He is seen wearing a suit during the first VHS tape in the beginning of Chapter 1, A Tight Squeeze, which seems to be an old Playtime Co commercial for Poppy herself and for the factory tours that were once held there, where in this video he is engulfed in purple light, which is certainly an interesting moment, one that I even pointed out in our Poppy Playtime playthrough video. Not to mention the whole he puts people in toys thing, like how William put people in animatronics, plus Elliot probably put his daughter into Poppy, much like how Afton's daughter Elizabeth ended up becoming Circus Baby, and then Elliot sealed his daughter away, and Afton put Baby in Circus Baby's entertainment and rental, which we visit in sister locations, so yeah, like this. And at 10, Brian Wells. This is certainly an interesting case that you may not really think relates to William, but let me explain my thought process. Brian Douglas Wells was an American pizza delivery driver who was killed during a complex bank robbery plot. The plot involved a collar bomb, a scavenger hunt, the robbery itself, and a pizza delivery man. Following an attempt to rob PNC Bank, Wells was surrounded by police. That's when the bomb around his neck ended up detonating, killing him. And while his family denies that he was a part of it, investigators and a federal prosecutor concluded that Wells was a knowing participant in the bank robbery. However, he was told that the bomb was fake, and he did not know that his co-conspirators intended for him to die. Now, I think that it was probably detonated because he got caught and they didn't want him to rat on them, and that is the prevailing theory amongst these people as well, amongst the prosecutor and whatnot. But aside from being a pizza delivery man for Mamma Mia's Pizzeria, what possible connection could he have to Afton? Well, being killed by a device that was supposed to be safe, for one, the spring locking and the collar, being betrayed by your peers, in William's case most likely Henry, and the affinity for complex plans. I feel like this may have been at least a slight source of inspiration, especially since this came up when I searched for pizza place serial killers, because I was hoping that there would be one. That's weird to say. Let's just move on. And at 9, Andrew Cunanan. Andrew Cunanan was born in San Diego, California, and eventually settled in San Francisco's Castro district and socialized with older, wealthy gay men while indulging heavily in illicit substances. It's unclear what set him off, but he began a cross-country killing spree of 5 unknown victims, the last of which was actually fashion designer Gianni Versace. Cunanan killed himself on a Miami boathouse in 1997, and if that didn't set off an alarm, congratulations, you have not been ruined by FNAF yet. However, William Afton also had 5 victims at least, but definitely only had 5 when FNAF 1 and even around FNAF 2 was released. And while FNAF 1 does take place in 1993, many have theorized it to instead take place in 1997, which is unlikely given the minimum wage of the times and the connection to another real person, but nonetheless, it's certainly an interesting case of more possible dates lining up and the same number of victims. You know, a lot of people on this list are actually going to have 5 victims, and it's extremely creepy. And at 8, The Ice Cream Man. Suggested to me by Amanda, the Ice Cream Man comic series is a horror anthology of loosely connected stories that all share the common link of a mysterious ice cream man named Rick, who's also revealed to be Ricardus, who, while a seemingly ordinary ice cream man, possesses inexplicable powers which he uses upon unsuspecting people. Rick's nemesis Caleb, a man dressed in an all-black cowboy outfit, will sporadically appear in the series trying to thwart Rick's plans, sometimes successfully and sometimes unsuccessfully. Honestly, this kind of story is very reminiscent of William Afton and Henry's story, Afton being the ice cream man, which is ironic given what happened to Elizabeth, and Henry is Caleb trying to thwart William's plans, sometimes successful and sometimes not. But no matter what, William always comes back, just like the Ice Cream Man. And Ice Cream Man is very close to how I feel William acts with his victims. Like, he's all like warm and fuzzy, and then he just shoves you in the back of his freezing cold van and drives off. And at 7, Burke and Hare. The Burke and Hare murders were 16 serial killings committed over a period of about 10 months in 1828 in Edinburgh, Scotland. The 2 men who committed these killings, last names Burke and Hare, were doing it because they also sold the corpses to Robert Knox for dissection at his anatomy lectures. There's actually a shortage of corpses in Edinburgh, and thus people actually started grave robbing and selling the corpses rather than selling the possessions, since a loophole in the system only considered it a theft if the body was taken with its clothes. Naked corpses were fine to take though, apparently. They didn't really think that one through. These two were killing in the name of science, something that we suspect William was doing as well. However, they actually were, in a messed up way, contributing to the furthering of science, whereas William is only doing it for his own selfish reasons and to become immortal. After Hare was given immunity to confess to the murders so that they could convict Burke, Burke was sentenced to death. Shortly afterwards, his corpse was dissected and his skeleton was displayed at the Anatomical Museum of Edinburgh Medical School, where, as of 2021, it actually still remains. Oh, and by the way, the reason they're known as Burke and Hare was because both of their first names are William. Yeah. So maybe Afton's wife is named something similar. And at 6, Ted Bundy. During an interview with Daco, PJ Haywood, the voice actor for William Afton in Sister Location, FNAF AR, and Ultimate Custom Night, said that Scott Cawthon described William as being a charismatic, smooth-talking snake oil salesman, which coincides with book William being able to convince anyone of anything. This is actually very similar to how Ted Bundy had been described. Bundy was regarded as charismatic and handsome, traits that he exploited to win the trust of both his victims and society as a whole. He would typically approach his victims in public places, either feigning a physical impairment such as an injury or impersonating an authority figure, before bludgeoning them until they were unconscious. While he did operate nearly a decade before Afton started his spree, those are merely just like year numbers. But one of the most interesting facts, however, is that in 1975, Bundy was arrested and jailed in Utah for aggravated kidnapping and attempted criminal assault. In Utah, where the games and the crimes of Afton take place. Halfway through into number 5, Arthur Gary Bishop. Arthur Gary Bishop was an American serial killer in 1983, and as a result of a routine police investigation, he confessed to the murders of 5 young boys between 1979 and 1983. Bishop was born in Hinckley, Utah, and was the eldest of 6 brothers. Bishop was raised as a devout Latter-day Saint, Mormon, and was an Eagle Scout and an honor student, which is already suspicious in comparison to Afton, given that Afton was also regarded as intelligent given his talent for animatronics, especially in the 80s, and his passion for business. But not only that, Bishop also operated under an alias. Bishop was arrested for embezzlement in February of 1978 and given a 5-year suspended sentence, but he skipped his parole and fled to Salt Lake City, living under the alias of Roger Downs. Under this alias, Bishop would then kill 5 boys between 1979 and 1983. It's also interesting that multiple key dates in Bishop's life line up closely to releases of FNAF games. On July 14th, 1993, he was arrested, and FNAF 4 came out on July 23rd, 9 days after that. Well, not in the same year, but you know what I mean. Bishop's first kill was on October 14th, 1979, and Sister Location was released on October 7th. I mean, it's not concrete, but it's certainly interesting. Plus, also he was caught in 1983, the same year that Crying Child was bit. In at 4, Donald Harvey. Harvey belonged to a group of psychos known as the Angels of Mercy who claimed to kill for the benefit of the victim. Harvey was convicted of 37 of his more than 57 suspected murders, and he confessed to as many as 87. When Harvey was hired at the Cincinnati VA Medical Hospital, he managed to collect over 30 pounds of cyanide which he had kept in his home. He also kept diaries and detailed notes on each one of his victims, including how he killed them. That gives me just that's intense William Afton vibes. Like, not for some certain reasons, but the delusion of him thinking that he was doing it for the benefit of the victims or just for any benefit it's horrifying, okay? It's the exact same kind of delusion that I could see William having. And a similar delusion to what he seems to have in the games. In the books, he's not exactly like this from my memory, but the game version certainly seems to be the type, okay? Especially given his appearance in the Foxy Go 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 minigame where he's smiling. Getting close to the end in number 3, Thomas Lee Dillon. Thomas Lee Dillon was a serial sniper found guilty of killing 5 men, again with the 5. Directed by voices in his head, Dillon killed people randomly. According to attending psychiatrists, Dillon's delusions of grandeur spilled over into the reality of his life and the lives of his victims. His victims were killed by a high-powered rifle while they participated in outdoor activities, sometimes hundreds of miles from Dillon's home. Authorities did not link the killings to Dillon until he actually sent a letter to a local paper. After the FBI FBI put together a criminal profile of the killer, a friend of Dillon's actually brought into the attention of the authorities, which in my mind is very close to the story of William Afton. The amount of victims, the authorities only investigating those murders after they got tipped off by a friend of the killer, in Afton's case that being Henry, the delusions or the voices in his head could be him being possessed. But honestly, a whole load of these people are just so much like William, it's terrifying. And ultimately, in at number 2, Gregory. Gregory is a villain and a criminal mastermind no matter what you people tell me in the comments. You can justify it all you want. He's still committed multiple crimes against Utah and its people, including murder, if you go by the phaser blast ending where Gregory orders robots to disassemble Vanny, like I explained in a previous video. Link to the Is Gregory a Criminal video in the iCard, whatever side it's on. But seriously, the crimes this guy commits within only what we see in the game is insane. Stealing, trespassing, destruction of property, grand larceny for stealing Freddy, and like I said, if you pick the phaser blast ending, Gregory kills Vanny. And it's not like he could claim self-defense, given that he actually chose to confront her instead of leaving, which can confirm premeditation, frankly. And he uses way too much force to justify self-defense. Whether you like it or not, Gregory is a criminal and a villain and deserves to be in prison, no way around that. And people are justifying this, okay? And the people who do, you need some form of therapy, just like Gregory and Vanessa were getting. Just like, come on, think about it. Gregory is a horrible person, and he could have just chilled with Freddy and been fine, but he went out of his way to destroy the animatronics, even paraphrasing the Joker when talking about them, omitting the swear word for you get what you deserve. And finally, in at number 1, Robert BERDELLA. Robert BERDELLA is, to me, the seemingly perfect inspiration for William Afton. Not only did this man own his own business called Bob's Bizarre Bazaar, where he reportedly sold human skulls, but he also seemingly started his killing spree in 1984. The MO is certainly not the same. BERDELLA would drug and kidnap men that he met in bars and on the streets, but the same idea of killing people you meet in a restaurant scene is carried over to William. There is no confirmed inspiration for William, hence this list, but there are certainly a decent amount of similarities between these two. In fact, if you combine like all the serial killers we talked about on this list, especially these last 4, you'll basically get a real William Afton, and I don't like that, okay? That's horrifying. But again, that was the point of this list, so it was a way for me to talk about FNAF without having to talk about FNAF, okay? I didn't go into too much detail with these because, well, I'm sure you can guess why, but yeah. Either way, I think that this is a pretty... The similarities are scary. That's all I have to say. In at 10, Phone Guy. While in the end the phone guy wasn't the killer, he still isn't very helpful in the long run considering how he says we aren't really gonna get killed. Well, okay, look, he warns us to be careful, but he doesn't really say, oh yeah, you'll die. I don't like him, okay? He should have done more than just say, be careful, it's trial and error, which is in essence what he said. Because honestly, after surviving this job for so long, you'd think that whoever this phone guy is would have some goddamn tips on how not to die. But he just gives us the freaking company history. Bro, I don't care if one of the animatronics bit someone, okay? They're trying to actually kill me. What do I do? Like, someone's head got bit 5 years ago, okay? I don't care. They're trying to eat my brain, okay? My Prada's at the cleaners, along with my hoodie and my animatronic flip-flops, you pretentious phone guy, okay? Why don't you come and keep this job so that I don't have to put my life at risk, huh? I don't care if you're dead. Come on, you stupid mother... In at 9, Michael Afton. Now, while Michael Afton is seen as the hero of the story, trying to shut down William's criminal spree despite being his child and whatnot, in my eyes, Michael is also a villain, because this kid is the reason there is a FNAF story to begin with, okay? Look, if this kid had just offed himself or ended up dying like his siblings, nobody would have been around to tell the story of the Aftons. We don't even know if Henry would have been trying to stop William without Michael bringing attention to it, okay? And considering how this channel has made over 400 FNAF videos at this current moment, those are all because Michael Afton just had to keep on kicking instead of kicking the bucket. We've made over 400 FNAF videos total, but in rough estimates, currently I've posted around 300 of those, which is actually insane and honestly scary as hell. And all of this because Michael just had to chase dear old dad and try to ruin him. If you put that effort into becoming like the CEO of Fazbear Entertainment once your father disappeared, maybe you could have done more good, okay? Afton would have been stuck in Fazbear Frights' room forever, and you could have stopped the company at its roots and then turned it into something maybe more productive. And today, GLAMROCK Freddy. This is another character that is intended to be a friendly one but ends up doing more harm than good. The existence of GLAMROCK Freddy in Security Breach is a good thing. He serves as your protector and is the first really friendly animatronic in the games, but he makes himself a villain in my eyes just by being stupid. He could have just left Gregory in his stomach cavity and then gone about the night and kept him safe until it was 6 a.m. But instead, he makes me go through this whole damn pointless goose chase just for the doors to reopen at 6 a.m. again. Why couldn't I have just chilled in his green room? Okay, the curtains were closed, Vanessa and Vanny didn't know where I was. Realistically, I should have just stayed in there until 6 a.m. and then I could have made a break for the doors. I didn't get out any faster by doing this, like Freddy said I would. Like, for game purposes, you have to go through this in order for time to progress, but if I had just chilled in Freddy's green room, technically I could have waited until 6 and I'd be fine. Like, that's what should have happened. And since it didn't, GLAMROCK Freddy is a villain. In at 7, Norman Osborn. Another suggestion from Amanda that I'm surprised I didn't think of first. Norman Osborn being the Green Goblin, but also the CEO of a very successful company, it seems like these two share a lot of the same ideas, or I guess rather the same concepts. Business owner who by night is evil and wreaks havoc without anyone really knowing it. But despite their secrecy, eventually people catch on and find out their secrets. Superpowers in the form of a goblin serum or being possessed by your dead son. So the two characters at the fundamental level are actually very much alike. The specifics aren't, which is really what threw me off, but it's a part of why we wanted Willem Dafoe to play Afton in the FNAF movie, right? Because he played this kind of character before with Norman. Plus, Norman and Afton kind of sound the same, just a little bit though. Osborn and William don't. But William and Willem do, so who knows at this point. And at 6, Ennard. While certainly creepy as a Ennard isn't all that scary in my opinion. He's certainly scary looking, but as a villain, all Ennard wants to do is escape. And once they do, and your flesh suit draws too much attention, they bail. Their only crime really is hijacking your body without your consent. But other than that, they don't really seem to do anything major. Baby ends up separating from them before they do anything crazy, and after Sister Location, the next time we see them is in Pizzeria Simulator, and between those two games, they seemingly don't have any kills under their belt. Why they wanted to escape only to later not do anything is one question, but in reality, since they don't do anything, we're really safe around them. Well, until they start trying to kill us in Pizzeria Simulator, but honestly, they didn't want us dead in Sister Location, so I think that they're pretty chill. However, there is the possibility of them being filled with the remnant of the original Missing Children animatronics, but that's in the novels, so there's no way of proving that this is truly the case with the games. Halfway through into number 5, the Blob. The Blob is a massive sized proportion of wire, tentacles, and animatronic parts with possession of many glowing red eyes, because of course it does. The Blob's main head has a mask identical to that of Funtime Freddy instead of Molten Freddy, with black eyes and pinkish red glowing pupils, and the endo face reveals to have metal plates rather than wired tubes as well, which is also confusing. Their body has a large black mass made of tentacle wires, and it appears to be a larger version of Molten Freddy after the Pizzeria Simulator fire, but again, it's Funtime Freddy's face, which doesn't make sense. It's also far more grotesque and mixed with parts of other animatronics and endoskeletons. If you look closely, you can see older animatronics like Circus Baby, Puppet, Chica, Mangle, Bonnie, several Endo Mark IIs, and probably many others on the actual inside. However, this dude thing is creepy as all living hell, and while I haven't done much since they haven't been in the series much, I still don't like them. Currently, all they've really done is either kill Gregory or potentially save William. Some people like to believe that the Blob killed William, but I'm only going to be certain that he's dead when he dies on screen. So the Blob pulling Afton away from a fire that he could have just left him at and let the bastard burn makes them a villain in my eyes. Also, we know that they're meant to be evil. It just looks like a giant black Freddy flubber booger. And at 4, Scott Cawthon. Now, I could say that Scott Cawthon is the villain because he made the series and continued it after he originally intended to end it, and thus caused me to have to talk about these theories for 8 hours a day, at least 5 days a week. However, this can get even more meta than that. I could say that Scott Cawthon in-universe made FNAF games, which also helped to contribute to Fazbear Entertainment coming back and reopening yet again with the Pizzaplex. But again, I can get even more meta than that, believe it or not, because way deep in the infamous FNAF World game, Scott Cawthon is the final boss, or at least his avatar is. And you know what? I think that deserves number 4. Anim Dude, otherwise known as Scott Cawthon, the storyteller or Omega Scott in the game files, or the Puppet Master by 8-Bit Fredbear, is the main antagonist and final boss of FNAF World. He can only be fought in hard mode, after beating security and entering during the 10 afterwards. His appearance is a three-dimensional representation of Scott Cawthon's icon avatar, which originally came from one of his previous games called There Is No Pause Button. But either way, he was the main antagonist of FNAF World, so it counts. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, Charlotte. Charlotte Emily, otherwise known as Charlie, is the main protagonist of the novels Five Nights at Freddy's The Silver Eyes and The Twisted Ones, and the secondary protagonist of The Fourth Closet. In The Silver Eyes, Charlotte is described to be a teenage girl with a round face and rosy cheeks, with brown wide eyes that glisten, and frizzy light brown hair. She wears a white t-shirt, black jeans, combat boots, and denim jacket, and it always looks like she's about to smile, somehow. And despite her sweetness and kind personality, she likes to be independent, and she doesn't actually get captured by William, but it's a long story, okay? In the books, she's actually the one who kinda killed William in the spring Bonnie suit, even though I guess now we know that he didn't actually die in that suit, but she also finds it hard to trust people. However, what makes her a villain isn't her trust issues, it's actually because unbeknownst to her, she is an animatronic robot that was meant to replace the daughter that Henry had lost. But it's also revealed that the animatronic is also the baby animatronic that we know and love, who can switch between her forms at will. And the human version of the animatronic doesn't remember being baby. This human animatronic also looks a lot like an actual human. It can even bleed. So yeah, Charlotte in the books is also baby. That's pretty damn freaky. And ultimately in at number 2, John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy, as I'm sure you know, was an American serial killer who killed 33 young men and boys. Gacy regularly performed at children's hospitals and charitable events as Pogo or Patches the Clown, personas that he had devised. He became known as the Killer Clown due to his public services as a clown prior to the discovery of these crimes, but jeez. Gacy committed all of the crimes inside of his ranch house, which is a horrible idea, just like William killing inside of his own pizzeria. Typically, he would lure a victim to his home and then dupe them into donning handcuffs on the pretext of demonstrating a magic trick. And while this is absolutely disgusting and really makes me sick to my stomach, there are still a few similarities to Afton. Okay, killing in a place related to you. For Gacy, it was his ranch house, and for Afton, it's his business. The target demographic is also the same with young people, although Afton also killed girls, which I don't even want. Ugh. And while you may think that this is a stretch, even FNAF itself made the connection with FNAF AR through the clown Springtrap skin. Intentional or not, come on, that's a connection. Finally, in at number 1, Baby. Originally known as Elizabeth Afton when she was alive, Circus Baby is the primary antagonist of Five Nights at Freddy's sister location. The soul of William Afton's daughter resides within her, alongside Baby's own consciousness. In FNAF 5, she removes her endoskeleton from her costume, and her fellow animatronics end up combining to create Ennard. So, she's already been on this list in the form of Ennard, and not only that, but she's also the reason Ennard was seemingly so brutal. Plus, she was also on this list because of Charlotte. However, that's the books. In the games, she pretends to be our friend the whole time in Sister Location, keeping us alive so that we would trust her, only to get tricked into going to the scooping room, where she could then forcefully enter our body and escape. Like top 10 anime betrayals, and Baby is at the top of this list. It's like she pretended to be our friend for the whole season of the show, but in the second last episode she's revealed to be the villain. Not to mention the various versions that she has in FNAF AR, like Broiler and Heartsick Baby. No thank you, sir. And those goddamn plush babies are just as bad, and they're goddamn plushies. Baby is the scariest FNAF villain that isn't Afton, and that's why she's tops this list.